Hello, you are listening to the Vive Salutable channel. He returned to California for 2 weeks, a short vacation between business trips. The Marines, the base is in Okinawa. He hasn't been home for almost 8 months. His name was Jake, 27 years old. Quiet, calm, a little naive. She, Emily, met him at the Los Angeles airport, his girlfriend. They look like the perfect couple. He's in uniform. She's in a summer dress, hugging like in a movie. He dreamed of this day. I fell asleep every night thinking about her. She wrote that she loved, missed, and was waiting. She sent me photos, short videos, and said she was counting the days. And now he's home. The first day was perfect. Dinner, a walk along the beach, an overnight stay together. But the very next day, something seemed strange. She often looked at her phone. Too often, he joked. Who's more important than me? She laughed. Work chats, you know. But Jake knew she used to leave her phone anywhere. And now he won't let go. I even took a shower with me. He noticed it. And he didn't say a word. I just remembered. On the third day, they went to Santa Monica. He offered to take a selfie. She agreed, but immediately said, "Just don't spill it, okay? At my place of work, not everyone knows about us." He said nothing, but something clicked in my chest. Later in the evening, she fell asleep next to me, and something was gnawing at him from the inside. Quietly, carefully, he took her phone. He had never checked on her before. But that night, I couldn't resist. And there in her messages, he saw a name he had never heard before. The messages were fresh, a couple of hours ago. The name is Tanner, just a first name, no last name, no emoji. But intuition was already screaming, this is not a friend. He opened the dialogue. My heart was beating so hard that the noise in my ears drowned out even my own breathing. You're so warm. You make me feel real. He's here again today. It's incredibly embarrassing. Just keep me in mind, okay? He'll be gone in a week. Everything will return as it was. Jake was sitting in a dim room. Emily was breathing beside him, calm and serene, like the sky above the ocean. And inside him, everything was crumbling. He continued reading. Screenshots, photo, voice messages. She said, "Baby, I love you. I'm looking forward to meeting you. Just be patient." And every word hit him like a bullet. Not because she cheated, but because she was doing it at a time when he was in uniform, in another country, risking his life for them. He carefully placed the phone on the bedside table. He lay back down. The eyes are open, but the gaze is not directed anywhere. The brain was trying to digest, understand, explain, but nothing worked out. The next morning, she behaved as usual. I made breakfast, laughed at something on YouTube, kissed him on the cheek, and he just looked at her and thought, at what point did everything become a lie? He didn't say anything. Not that day, not the next day. He was watching, was listening. I was looking for confirmation. And there were too many of them. A new pendant, an unfamiliar shirt on the back of a chair, the smell of men's cologne in the car, although Jake didn't use anything like that. He found out who Tanner was. The neighbor from the next house, a couple of years older. Funny, confident, worked remotely. She told Jake that she hardly talked to anyone. And Tanner was with her every night while Jake was thousands of miles away. One evening, Jake decided to do something that no one expected of him. He invited Emily to dinner. To the restaurant where they were on their first date. She was surprised. He wasn't usually spontaneous. But she agreed. She was smiling as if nothing had happened. We ordered food and wine. He sat across from her, looked into her eyes, and was silent. Long. Then he said, "Do you love him?" Emily froze. Who? He was looking straight ahead. Tanner, do you love him? Everything froze. The people at the neighboring tables were laughing and clinking glasses. And they have absolute silence at the table. She didn't answer right away. At first, I tried to translate it into a joke. Then she hesitated, and then my eyes filled with water. And she said, "I didn't mean to. It was all an accident. You were so far away." He didn't scream. He didn't slap the table. He just said, "I was away because I was serving. And you were there, and you chose betrayal." She asked me not to leave. She asked for a chance. But he already knew that it didn't matter what she said next. He had already read everything he needed to know. Heard. I felt it. He stood up. I left the money on the table. And he went out into the cool California night. I walked for a long time, without a purpose. I was just walking, and every step was a farewell. Not with her, but with the illusion that she had once been waiting for him. He returned home closer to midnight. The apartment was empty. She didn't come back. And to be honest, he hoped he wouldn't come back. He sat down on the floor in the living room with his back to the sofa. I didn't turn on the light. It's easier to think in the dark. It's easier to feel that you're alone, not because you've been abandoned, but because you've chosen loneliness instead of falsehood. The phone was nearby, but he didn't touch it. No calls, no messages. He didn't want to know how she felt anymore. I didn't want to hear any excuses or tears. Everything has already been said. All masks have been torn off. The next day he packed his things. A little bit, a uniform, documents, a couple of photos, a watch from my father. The rest didn't matter anymore. The things that were bought with her no longer belonged to his life. There was no t-shirt, no mug, no book on the shelf. He checked into a motel near the highway. A quiet place. I didn't know anyone and no one knew him. For 2 nights in a row, he just lay there and stared at the ceiling. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. The emptiness inside was quieter than any emotion. On the 3rd morning, he got up and went running. Not because I wanted to, but because it was necessary to feel something. My heart was pounding, my lungs were burning, and my thoughts were still about her. But with every kilometer, this feeling weakened. Her image was slowly disappearing into the hot Los Angeles air. A week later, he returned to the base. No one knew what had happened. He wasn't sharing. Only one colleague once said, "You've changed, brother." And Jake just nodded. He's really changed. Now he knew what happens when you come home and you're not at home. When you write, "I miss you," and they lie to you in response. When you hope that they are waiting for you, but you have long been crossed out. He didn't get violent, but he became different, more relaxed, colder. He no longer trusted words, only actions, just the looks, just the silence between the phrases. It says more than any vows. Sometimes he still thought of her, not with hatred, not with pain, just like a moment that once was and is gone, like a mistake he paid too much for. The service went on as usual. New business trips, new faces, new life. He was laughing again, but not so easily. He fell in love again, but not so fast. He learned to take care of himself. And don't give your heart to those who don't know how to hold it in their hands. And Emily, he didn't know where she was. Maybe he's still with Tanner. Maybe with someone new. He didn't check it. I didn't look for it. I didn't want to know. Because I realized the main thing, the one who can betray once is capable of betraying always. And he will never give such an opportunity again. Time passed. Several months flew by almost imperceptibly, in the ranks, in the barracks, in the sand, in the silence between shots. There was no room for illusions in his life anymore. Only reality. Only people you can rely on when the wind is whistling and the sky is rumbling nearby. One evening after a hard workout, he went outside. I took a coffee from the vending machine and sat down on the steps in front of the barracks. There was an unusual silence in the sky, and it was in such silence that he felt truly calm inside for the first time. He didn't wait any longer. I didn't build conversations in my head that would never happen. I couldn't imagine how she could apologize or what she would say. He let go. Not fast, not immediately, but honestly. One day he found an old photograph. He and Emily were in it. They smile. Near the ocean, the sun, Southern California. He looked at the picture for a long time. He stared into his own eyes. Back then, they were naive and full of faith. Then he carefully folded the photo in half and threw it in the trash. He felt no regret. He felt free. Jake has learned to distinguish love from affection. I learned that true love doesn't disappear when it gets difficult. She doesn't turn away, doesn't look for a replacement, doesn't hide in someone's arms. True love is loyalty in thoughts, in deeds, in every day that you spend apart but still together. He started writing a diary. Not for anyone, but for myself. Pages full of thoughts, doubts, strength, silence. Sometimes he reread it. I saw how I changed, how the pain was relieved, how calmness appeared instead of anger, how she disappeared. And he was coming back. A year later, he was back in California. On business of the service. Everything looked the same. The streets, the smell of the ocean, the evening sun. But he was different. He passed by an old house. The windows were curtained. There are other people's things in the garden. Someone else was living there now. And it was the right thing to do. Because the house he had once returned to no longer existed. He didn't stop. He didn't look back. He walked on. No questions asked. No regrets. Because sometimes cheating isn't just the end of love. This is the beginning of you. The next morning, he woke up in a motel near the coast. The room was simple. White walls, the smell of cheap soap, the slight hum of the air conditioner. But for the first time in a long time, he woke up without a heaviness in his chest. Calmly, assuredly. It was as if everything had finally become smooth inside. He got a coffee from a small diner nearby. An elderly couple was sitting at the next table. They were silent, ate slowly, and sometimes looked at each other. Not with delight, not with pathos, but with something warm and simple. Jake caught himself thinking, I wish that was it. Not a fire that quickly goes out, but a warmth that lasts for years. He returned to the base with a different face. The guys noticed it right away. Someone asked what has changed. He just shrugged his shoulders. I just stopped holding on to what had let me go first a long time ago. He was no longer drawn to the past. He did not recall the smell of her perfume, did not replay conversations in his head, did not think if it could be otherwise. Everything was as it was supposed to be. Sometimes life rips out the weak parts of you to make room for something real. A few months later, he went abroad again, a new mission, a new base, new people. This time, he did not keep up a correspondence full of hope. He didn't expect to hear from anyone in particular. He lived, worked, served. I slept peacefully. One day, at the base, someone connected the internet, and he accidentally saw a photo on one of the social networks. Emily. The same smile. The other man is nearby. Child. Caption. My family is my everything. He stared at the screen for a long time. Not with pain, not with jealousy, and with such cold calmness, as if you were looking at someone else's life in which you no longer belong. And that's right. He closed the app, deleted it, forgot. Because I knew he is no longer a part of this story. He became the head of his own. And now it all started with the truth. With respect from myself. A few more years have passed. Jake completed his military service and returned to civilian life. Not immediately, not easily, but firmly. He got a job as a tactical training instructor in a small private company. Strict regime, physical activity, discipline, everything he knew and could do. But the main thing was that no one else could break his soul. He's already been through this. And he remained standing. Sometimes he traveled to coastal towns in California. Not because I was drawn back, but because there was air there that was easy to breathe. In one of these towns, he went into a bookstore one morning just to kill time. And there I met her. Not Emily, the girl. A complete stranger. No déjà vu. No pain. She was choosing a book, stopped and smiled at him. Not coquettishly, not expectantly. Just like a human being. He nodded. They started talking. About books, about the weather, about the city. No drama, no promises, just lightness and presence. They started dating. Careful, calm down. Jake had been honest with her from the very beginning, telling her that he had been through it, that he did not forgive lies, that silence was louder than words for him. She was listening. She didn't interrupt. And she stayed by my side. A year later, he proposed to her, without pathos, without crowds, without big words. He just said, I want you to be with me, because now I know how to appreciate silence that has truth in it. She said yes. On their wedding day, he didn't think about Emily. He didn't think about the past at all. Just about how much can change in life if you don't give up after you've been betrayed. Unless you're getting worse. If you choose growth rather than revenge. He knew that there was no falsehood in this woman opposite him. She didn't text others while she was holding his hand. She wasn't playing at love. She loved, as quietly, honestly, and simply as he had once dreamed. This story began with betrayal, but she ended up with a new life. Not because someone came back, but because he found himself, and he chose not to destroy, but to build anew. Autumn in coastal California comes imperceptibly. The leaves do not turn yellow as in the east. It's just that the air is getting drier and the sun is getting softer. It was on days like this that Jake felt especially calm. It's almost like everything worked out right, but calm doesn't always mean the end. One evening, when he was returning from work, he noticed a strange letter in his mailbox. It wasn't an email, it wasn't official, it was just an ordinary envelope with no return address and his handwritten name. He picked it up and held his breath. The paper smelled familiar, very familiar, and the handwriting too, slightly sloppy compressed letters. He knew the handwriting. He hadn't seen him for several years, but it would take him a while to forget. He did not open the letter immediately. I just held it in my hand. He stood on the threshold of the house and looked at the door, behind which a new life awaited him. The warmth, the smell of dinner, the light. But the letter was from where he had left long ago. He sat down on the porch, put the keys next to it, and slowly opened the envelope. The first line was his name. Just the name. No hi, no sorry, no I miss you. Simply Jake. He read slowly. Every word seemed to take the breath out of him. The letter was short, without asking. No charges. Just a confession. Calm. It's cold. Almost indifferent. She knew he was married. Someone told me. She said she saw the photo on social media. The smile is real, she wrote. You're something I haven't seen in a long time. Then it happened. The unexpected. And not for the sake of an apology. And not for the sake of trying to get it back. She wrote this letter for a different reason. Because according to her, he should have the right to know. Something he didn't know. Something he hadn't noticed. And this part began with two words highlighted separately. He knew. Jake reread these two words. He knew. And his heart sank. What exactly did he know? Who? And for how long? His mind began to assemble a puzzle that had been scattered for a long time. The letter said that Tanner, the neighbor, the same man from the past, knew about her infidelities from the very beginning. He didn't just know, but participated, observed, and perhaps played a role in this story. He saw everything, kept silent, and gave her space to deceive. This discovery seemed to bring down a new wave of pain on Jake. But at the same time, it gave an answer to many questions that had tormented him for years. Why didn't Tanner leave? Why didn't he say anything? Why did he seem so calm? It was all part of some complicated game in which Jake was just a pawn. But now it was different. He folded the letter, took a deep breath, and stood up. The past tried to resurrect, to remind him of himself. But Jake was no longer the same person who had once been afraid of pain and betrayal. He looked at the house where his wife lived, at the street, at the sky. And he smiled, because he understood that the most important battle was not with others, but with himself. And he won it. He went inside, where there was a new life, new love, new opportunities. Where you can be honest, first of all, with yourself. And that's where real freedom began.